This 4-year-old beggar girl sees a millionaire being robbed with his son in his arms, but she saw everything and does something that shocked everyone. Watch until the end. Comment telling me what you thought of this story, giving it a rating from 0 to 10. I really want to know if you liked my story and subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The midday sun beat down on the asphalt of the rural highway that cut through the outskirts of Oak Creek as William Carter adjusted the rearview mirror of his silver Mercedes convertible and accelerated down the deserted straightaway. At 42, the construction mogul's face was marked by the stress of recent months, his eyes tired from weeks of sleepless nights. In the back, securely fastened in his car seat, his son Owen dozed peacefully, oblivious to the worries consuming his father. The black leather briefcase on the passenger seat contained $5 million in cash, all the liquidity left from his company, withdrawn that morning as a last-ditch effort to save the real estate project on the verge of collapse. William gripped the steering wheel tighter as he thought about the forged documents discovered at City Hall, a fraud he had no knowledge of, but which now threatened to destroy everything he had built over 15 years of hard work. The cell phone rang again. It was Claire Montgomery, his ex-wife and Owen's mother. William let it go to voicemail, knowing it would be another demand for late child support or a veiled threat about custody. The high-powered lawyer from the city had never forgiven him for the divorce, and now saw his financial crisis as the perfect opportunity to take Owen out of his life for good. That's when 3 masked men appeared out of nowhere, blocking the road with an old clunker. William slammed on the brakes, making the tires squeal on the asphalt. Before he could think, he was being dragged from the vehicle by violent hands that shoved him against the hot hood of the Mercedes. "The briefcase! Where's the briefcase?" one of the men shouted, his voice muffled by the fabric covering his face. "Please, there's a child in the car," William pleaded, trying to look back to check on Owen. The baby had woken up with the noise and was starting to cry. "Shut up!" snarled another robber, grabbing the briefcase from the front seat and quickly checking its contents. "That's it, $5 million on the dot." The third man tied William's hands with a rough rope and pushed him against a tree on the side of the road. "Stay quiet and don't try anything funny. Someone will pass by in half an hour and find you." William struggled against the ropes as the men ran off with the briefcase, leaving him helpless as Owen cried louder and louder inside the car. Desperation washed over him as he realized he couldn't break free, and his son urgently needed care. "Help! Somebody help me!" he screamed with all the strength in his lungs. But the road was deserted, and his voice was lost in the hot afternoon wind. It was then that a small figure emerged from the nearby bushes, a girl of only 4 years, with dirty, torn clothes, disheveled hair, and bare feet. Her thin face was marked by poverty, but her eyes shone with a surprising intelligence for her age. She was holding a plastic bag half full of crushed cans. "Mister, why are you tied up?" Maya asked in her childish voice, approaching cautiously. "Please, little girl, help me. There's a baby crying in that car, and I can't get to him," William said, his voice choked with desperation. Maya looked at the Mercedes and heard Owen's intense cries. Without hesitation, she ran to the vehicle and climbed into the back seat. With careful movements that seemed impossible for a child her age, she unbuckled the car seat and picked up the baby. "Shh, baby, shh," she murmured, rocking Owen gently. To William's surprise, the crying subsided almost immediately. "Can you untie me?" William asked, watching in disbelief as this unknown girl soothed his son with such natural ease. Maya tried to loosen the knots, but her small hands weren't strong enough. She looked around and made a decision that would forever change the lives of everyone involved. "I'm going to get help," she said, holding Owen firmly against her chest. "There's a good man in town who can help." "No, don't take my son," William shouted in panic. "I'll take care of him," Maya promised with impressive seriousness. You can't get out of there by yourself. If I don't get help, the baby will get sick in the sun." Before William could protest again, the girl was already running down the dirt road toward town, carrying Owen with a maternal care that contrasted sharply with her appearance as an abandoned child. William shouted until he was hoarse, but she didn't come back. The hours dragged on under the scorching sun. William alternated between moments of absolute panic and desperate attempts to free himself from the ropes cutting into his wrists. He thought of Claire, imagining how she would react to the news that he had not only lost the money that could have saved his company, but had also let their son disappear with a street girl. The sound of an old engine approaching made his heart race. An old Ford pickup truck pulled up beside the Mercedes, and two men got out. One was tall and thin, about 60, with graying hair and the calloused hands of a hard worker. The other was younger, sturdy, with a concerned smile. "Are you the baby's father?" the older man asked, approaching with a knife to cut the ropes. "Yes." "Where's my son?" "The girl, she took my son," William said, rubbing his sore wrists as soon as he was free. "He's fine. Maya looked after him like a little mother. I'm Theodore Nash. I own a garage in town. When she showed up there with the boy, she said you needed help." William felt his legs go weak. Thank you for coming. I need my son back." "Of course. Let's go to the garage and get him. But first, tell me what happened here." As they drove back to town, William recounted the robbery, omitting only the exact amount in the briefcase. Theodore listened in silence, watching him in the rearview mirror with eyes that seemed to see beyond the words. The auto repair shop was on a dirt road in the center of Oak Creek, between two simple houses with porches full of flowers. When they entered, William saw a scene that moved him deeply. Maya was sitting in an old chair, cradling Owen and humming a lullaby, while the baby slept peacefully in her dirty but gentle arms. "She hasn't let go of him for a minute," Theodore said quietly. "Said she promised you she'd take good care of him." William approached slowly, not wanting to startle the girl. When Maya looked up and saw him, her face lit up with a smile that melted the businessman's heart. "Mister, you got free. The baby's fine, look." She held Owen out to William, who took his son in his arms and felt a mixture of relief, gratitude, and a strange emotion he couldn't identify. He looked at the girl who had saved his son and wondered how someone so small and seemingly abandoned could have such a big heart. "What's your name, honey?" he asked, crouching down to her level. "Maya. And what's the baby's name?" "Owen. And I'm William." He hesitated for a moment, looking into the girl's tired but bright eyes. "Maya, where are your parents?" Her smile slowly faded, and William realized he had asked the wrong question. Theodore placed a protective hand on the girl's shoulder. "Maya lives around. Showed up in town a few months ago. We look after her when we can." William looked around the simple garage, with its old tools and oil-stained concrete floor, then at Theodore, who clearly didn't have much money but had opened his home to a child in need. He thought of his empty mansion, of Claire filing lawsuits against him, of the $5 million that had disappeared along with his last hopes. Can I stay here tonight?" he asked impulsively. "I have nowhere to go right now." Theodore smiled, the first genuine display of human warmth William had received in a long time. "Of course, the house is small, but there's always room for one more." The first night in Theodore's garage was the strangest of William's life. He slept on an old mattress on the floor of the small adjoining room, while Owen lay in a makeshift crib Theodore had built from wooden crates and soft blankets. Maya insisted on sleeping on the floor next to the crib, like a little guardian watching over the baby's sleep. William couldn't sleep a wink. Every sound of the night made him think of the robbers, of Claire's threats, of the uncertain future that awaited him. When the sun rose, he found Maya already awake, sitting next to Owen and making funny faces that made the baby giggle. "He likes you," William observed, sitting heavily on the edge of the mattress. "Babies can tell when you really like them," Maya said, with her disconcerting, childish wisdom. "My mum used to say that before she stopped talking abruptly, looking down. William realized he had touched a deep wound, but before he could say anything, Theodore appeared at the door with 3 steaming mugs of coffee. "Morning, folks. How'd you sleep?" "Fine, thank you," William lied, gratefully accepting the coffee. "Theodore, I have to ask, why are you doing this? You don't know me. You don't know anything about me." The mechanic sat in an old chair and sighed deeply. "My wife, Eleanor, always said you never know when you'll need the kindness of a stranger. She passed away 5 years ago, and since then this garage has been my only company. I'm sorry for your loss. She loved children. We couldn't have any of our own, but we always had the neighborhood kids over. When Maya showed up in town 3 months ago, thin and scared, I thought of Eleanor. She would have done the same thing." Maya had approached during the conversation and was now playing with Owen, making funny sounds that made him laugh. William watched the interaction and felt something stir inside his chest, an emotion he couldn't identify. "We need to talk about something serious," Theodore said quietly, motioning for them to go outside so the girl wouldn't hear. "Last night, after you two were asleep, I had a visitor. Outside the garage, under the already hot morning sun, Theodore lit a cigarette with trembling hands. It was one of the men who robbed you. He was still wearing a mask, but I recognized his voice. He said if I turned you in or talked to the police, they'd burn the garage down with everyone inside." William felt his blood run cold. "My God, Theodore, you can't get involved in this. I'll leave right now. I don't want to put you in danger." "Hold on, son. It's not that simple." Theodore took a long drag. "That man, I've heard that voice before. I think I know who it is." "What do you mean?" "John Beggar. Worked for your company until about 6 months ago. Got fired for drinking on the job, caused a big scene at the time. I remember because he came here complaining that you'd ruined his life." William clenched his fists. John Beggar had been one of his best plumbers, but his alcoholism had become uncontrollable. The firing was unavoidable after he showed up drunk and nearly caused a serious accident at the construction site. If it's really him, how did he know I'd be on that road with the money? That's the $5 million question, isn't it? Theodore stubbed out the cigarette on the ground. "Someone fed them information. Someone who knows your movements well." The reality hit William like a punch to the gut. Only a few people knew about the cash withdrawal and the route he would take to the construction office. His partner, Bernard Fields, his secretary, Nora Quinn, and maybe 2 or 3 other trusted employees. "I need to go to the company," he said, his mind racing. "I need to find out who betrayed me." "And where are you going to leave the boy?" William looked inside the garage, where Maya continued to care for Owen with maternal dedication. The thought of taking his son into a potentially dangerous environment terrified him, but leaving him here also seemed risky. "I can take care of the baby," said Maya, who had quietly approached and overheard part of the conversation. "I know how to change diapers, give him a bottle, everything." "Maya, you're too young for that responsibility," William said gently. "I always took care of the babies back in the slums before I came here. I know how to do it right. And Theodore will be close by, right?" Theodore nodded. "I'm not leaving here today, and if anyone suspicious shows up, we'll hide in the cellar." "You have a cellar?" "Built it years ago, when Eleanor was afraid of thunderstorms. It's small, but it's safe." William hesitated. The situation was surreal. He was considering leaving his son in the care of a 4-year-old street girl and a mechanic he had known for less than 24 hours. But looking at Maya, he saw something in her eyes that inexplicably reassured him. "All right. But any problem, anything strange, you hide and call me, okay?" 2 hours later, William was at the office of Carter and Fields Construction, discreetly observing his employees' behavior. Bernard, his partner of 10 years, seemed genuinely worried about the robbery and furious about the betrayal. "5 million, William. It was our last chance to save the company. Who was the son of a bitch who passed on the information? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." Nora Quinn, his personal secretary for 3 years, displayed a concern that seemed excessive. She asked too many questions about the details of the robbery and insisted on knowing where he was staying. "Mr. Carter, you can't stay in some cheap motel. What if they come back? Let me call a good hotel in the city, far from here." "No need, Nora. I'm fine where I am. But where exactly? I need to know so I can forward your calls." Her insistence began to bother William. Nora had always been efficient and discreet, but now she seemed nervous, restless. Her eyes kept darting away when he looked at her directly. During lunch, William decided to test his suspicions. He called Nora into his office and told her an elaborate lie. "Nora, I need you to be discreet with this information. I'm meeting a private investigator this afternoon at the cafe on the square at 3 o'clock. Don't mention it to anyone, not even Bernard." "Of course, Mr. Carter, you can trust me." At 2:30, William was hidden behind a tree in the square, watching the cafe. Punctually at 3, he saw Nora approach the establishment, look around nervously and make a quick phone call. 5 minutes later, a man appeared, walking briskly toward the cafe. Even from a distance, William recognized the distinctive walk of John Baker. William's heart pounded. His secretary had indeed betrayed his trust, passing information to the robbers. But why? And what else had she revealed? He rushed back to Theodore's garage, his mind buzzing with questions and plans for revenge. He found Maya playing with Owen in the backyard, humming a soft song that made the baby smile. "How did it go?" Theodore asked, appearing with his hands covered in grease. "I found out who betrayed me. My secretary is involved with the robbers." "And what are you going to do?" William looked at Maya and Owen, thinking of their vulnerability, of the responsibility he had taken on by accepting them into his life. "I'm going to be very careful. If she suspects I know, she could put all of you in danger." That night, as Maya was telling Owen a made-up bedtime story, William's cell phone rang. It was Claire, and her voice was filled with a fury he knew well. "William, I just heard about the robbery. Where is my son?" "Owen is fine and safe." "Where exactly? I want to pick him up now." "Claire, he's being well cared for. You don't need to worry." "Don't give me that. You were robbed, you lost money, you clearly can't protect a child. I'm coming to get Owen. And this time he's staying with me for good." "You can't do that." "Yes, I can. I've already spoken to my lawyer. With this incident, I can get full custody by claiming negligence and an unsafe environment. What kind of father takes a baby to a robbery?" The call ended abruptly. William stared at his phone, feeling the world crumble around him. First the money, then the discovery of Nora's betrayal, and now Claire was coming for Owen. "Mister, why are you sad?" asked Maya, who had approached silently. "It's nothing, honey. Grown-up problems. Is it about the baby? Does someone want to take him away?" William looked at this extraordinary girl who in 2 days had shown more motherly love for Owen than many adults would in a lifetime. Maybe. Maya took William's hand with her small, dirty ones. "Don't let them take him. The family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. My mum used to say that." The wisdom of those words hit William hard. He looked at Theodore, who was watching the scene with teary eyes, then at Maya, who had become the big sister Owen would never have, and finally at his son, sleeping peacefully in the makeshift crib. For the first time in his life, William understood that family wasn't just defined by blood ties or legal documents, and that maybe it was worth fighting for this strange, unlikely family that fate had placed in his path. The morning arrived, with the sound of cars stopping in front of the garage. William woke with a start and ran to the window, seeing two vehicles parked on the street, a black sedan he recognized as Claire's, and an official car with Child Protective Services markings. "Theodore," he whispered, rushing to the mechanic's room. "Claire's here and she brought social workers." Theodore jumped out of bed, quickly pulling on a shirt. "Take the kids to the cellar, quick!" William picked up Owen while Maya, still sleepy but understanding the urgency, followed them silently through the back of the garage. Theodore lifted a disguised wooden hatch in the floor, revealing a staircase leading down to a small, dimly lit cellar. "Stay down here and don't make a sound," Theodore instructed. "If anything happens, there's an exit at the back that leads to the neighbor's yard." The knocking on the front door echoed through the garage. William descended with the children, his heart pounding erratically. The cellar was small but organized, with a few old chairs, paint cans, and tools stored on makeshift shelves. From upstairs, muffled voices carried down. William immediately recognized Claire's authoritarian tone. "Mr. Nash, I'm Claire Montgomery, an attorney and the mother of the baby in your care. I need to speak with William Carter immediately." "I don't know what child you're talking about, ma'am," Theodore replied in a firm voice. "I only work on cars here." "Don't waste my time. I know my ex-husband and my son are here. This is Dr. Fernanda Caruso from Child Protective Services, and we have legal authorization to check on the minor's condition." In the cellar, Maya held William's hand as Owen began to fuss. The girl put a finger to her lips, signaling silence, and started making funny faces to distract the baby. "May I see your garage?" a softer female voice asked, likely the social workers. "Sure, be my guest." Footsteps echoed across the garage floor. William could hear Claire commenting with disdain about the filth and unsuitable conditions of the place. The social worker seemed to be taking notes, walking slowly and observing every detail. "Mr. Nash," said Dr. Caruso, "we received a report that a 4-year-old child might be living here without proper supervision. Do you know a girl of that age?" "Oh, Maya," Theodore said naturally. "She shows up here from time to time, a street kid, poor thing. I give her a plate of food when I can, but she doesn't live here." "And where does she sleep?" "Around, under awnings, in abandoned lots. It's a tough life." Claire spoke impatiently. "Doctor, we're wasting time. I didn't come here for some street kid. I want my son and the irresponsible father who put him in danger. Mrs. Montgomery, I need to investigate all situations involving at-risk minors. If there's an abandoned child in the area, it's my duty." In the cellar, Maya listened with tears in her eyes. William saw how the description of her life hurt her and felt a growing anger at Claire for her coldness. The footsteps moved toward the back of the garage. William held his breath as he heard the voices get closer to the cellar entrance. "What's down here?" Dr. Caruso asked. "Storage, old parts, paint, that sort of thing," Theodore answered. "May I take a look?" "Sure, but be careful with the stairs. They're a bit steep." William felt panic seize him. If they were discovered, Claire would easily get custody of Owen, claiming he was hiding the child in inadequate conditions. Worse still, Maya would be taken to a shelter. But when Dr. Caruso descended a few steps, she only found Theodore rearranging some paint cans he had strategically placed in front of the wall, where William and the children were hiding. "It really is just storage," she concluded, climbing back up. Claire was visibly irritated when they returned to the main area of the garage. "Mr. Nash, I'll leave you my card. When William shows up, tell him he has 24 hours to return my son or he'll face the legal consequences." "I'll pass on the message if he shows," Theodore promised. After the cars drove away, William came up from the cellar with the children. He was visibly shaken, but Maya surprised him with her reaction. "Mister, why did the pretty lady say I was a street kid, like it was a bad thing?" she asked, with a sadness that broke William's heart. Because some people judge others without knowing their stories, he replied, crouching to her level. But you're not just a street kid. You're Maya, the bravest and most caring girl I know. Is she Owen's mom? Yes. She doesn't seem to like him very much. She didn't ask if he was okay, if he was eating right, nothing. Maya's observation hit William like a revelation. It was true. During the entire visit, Claire had focused on legal and territorial issues, but had shown no real concern for Owen's well-being. Theodore, William said, I can't keep putting you in danger. Maybe it's better if I give Owen to her and deal with my issues alone. Are you really going to do that? Theodore asked, lighting a cigarette with slightly trembling hands. It's the most sensible thing to do. And Maya, are you going to abandon her too? William looked at the girl, who was making Owen laugh with simple games. I don't know what to do with her. I can't adopt her. I'm not in a position to right now. I'll take care of her, Theodore said. I've been doing it anyway. Alone, at your age. I'd rather have the company, even if it's work. This garage has been too quiet since Eleanor passed. At that moment, William's cell phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello? William, this is Isabella, Theodore's granddaughter. I'm calling because I need to talk to you guys urgently. William looked at Theodore, who seemed surprised. Your granddaughter. Izzy? What happened, kid? Theodore took the phone. Grandpa, I'm at the bus station in Oak Creek. I came from the city as a surprise, but there are strange people in town asking about you. They said you're hiding a businessman and a child. Theodore turned pale. What do you mean? A man offered the bus driver money to tell him if he'd seen any unusual activity at your garage. I think you're being watched. William felt his stomach drop. If the robbers were investigating the garage, it meant they hadn't given up on finding him, and worse, they now knew he was hiding there. Isabella, don't come here now, Theodore said quickly. Go to your Aunt Connie's house and stay there until I call. Grandpa, what's going on? What's happening? I'll explain later. Just go. William hung up and began to pace, his mind working frantically. They've found us, Theodore, and now they've dragged your family into this mess. Isabella's smart. She'll be safe at Eleanor's sister's house. But for how long? What if they find out where she is? Maya, who had listened to the whole conversation with rapt attention, approached him. Mister, are you scared? I am, honey. Very scared. When I was scared in the slums, my mom used to say that bad people only have power over us if we let them. But when we have good people on our side, we're stronger. William looked at this 4-year-old girl who had lost everything but continued to offer wisdom and comfort to the adults around her. He thought of Claire, of her calculated coldness, her concern only with legal matters. Then he looked at Theodore, who had risked his own safety to help strangers, and at Maya, who cared for Owen as if he were her own brother. You're right, he said, picking her up. We have good people on our side, so we'll be stronger than the bad people. We'll try. But even as he comforted Maya, William knew the situation was becoming unsustainable. Claire would be back with legal reinforcements, the robbers were closing in, and now even Theodore's granddaughter was in danger because of him. He looked at Owen, sleeping peacefully in the makeshift crib, oblivious to the chaos his presence had brought into everyone's lives. And he wondered if he was really doing the right thing by fighting for this family that had barely begun to form. The afternoon was passing in a false calm at the garage when Isabella arrived, defying her grandfather's orders. The 22-year-old technology student from the city entered through the back door with a determined expression that strongly resembled Theodore's. "Grandpa, I wasn't going to let you face this alone," she said, hugging the mechanic. "And I brought important information." William watched Theodore's granddaughter with curiosity. She was a tall young woman with curly hair, tied back in a ponytail, glasses and simple but well-kept clothes. There was a sharp intelligence in her eyes that immediately put him at ease. "Isabella, Meet Maya and William, Theodore introduced. And this little one is Owen. Hi, Maya said shyly, holding Owen. Hi, sweetie. You're the one who took care of the baby when his dad was robbed, Isabella asked, crouching down with a kind smile. Maya nodded proudly. I did. I know how to change diapers and everything. That's a big responsibility. I bet you're an excellent big sister. William noticed how Isabella treated Maya with natural warmth and affection. Without the disdain Claire had shown, she was clearly a good-hearted person, raised with the same values that guided Theodore. What information did you bring? Theodore asked, pouring coffee for everyone. First, about the woman who was here this morning, Claire Montgomery. I know her. William nearly dropped his cup. What do you mean? I'm an intern at the Mendez and Associates law firm in the city. Ms. Montgomery has been our opponent in a few cases. She has a reputation for being ruthless and using every legal trick in the book to get what she wants. That doesn't surprise me, William muttered. But there's more. I talked to a colleague who worked with her recently. It seems Ms. Montgomery is having financial trouble. Her firm has lost some major clients in the last few months. Theodore frowned. And what does that mean? That she might not be fighting for custody of the baby just out of motherly love, Isabella explained. If she can prove the father is irresponsible and gets full custody, she can demand a very high amount of child support. William felt a mix of anger and sadness. I always suspected there were financial motives behind her obsession with Owen's custody. And there's more, Isabella continued. About the men who are looking for you. I got some information at the bus station. She pulled a small laptop from her backpack and showed them some notes. The man who offered the driver money wasn't one of the robbers. He was better dressed with a city accent. He said he was looking for a businessman who had run off with investors' money. What kind of lie is that? William protested. Hold on, I know it's a lie, but it means there are more people after you than just the robbers, and this person has the resources to hire private investigators. William thought quickly. Who else could be interested in finding him besides the robbers themselves? His creditors knew about the company's financial situation, but they wouldn't conduct this kind of search. Unless... Nora, he said suddenly. My secretary. If she's involved with the robbers, she might have hired someone to find me. Why would she do that? Theodore asked. To find out if I have more money hidden, or to make sure I don't report her. Maya, who had been playing quietly with Owen, suddenly looked up. Mister, there's something I forgot to tell you. What is it, honey? Yesterday, when you were out, a lady came here. She said she was your employee and was worried about you. William and Theodore exchanged alarmed glances. What did she look like? William asked. Pretty, neat hair, business clothes, spoke politely. She asked if you had said where you were going, if you had taken anything important. And what did you say? Theodore answered with a tense voice. I said you hadn't mentioned anything specific, but she kept looking around the garage, asking how many rooms it had, if there was a place to hide things. My God, William murmured. Nora was here and you didn't tell me. I thought it was just an employee's concern. She seemed sincere. Isabella shut her laptop with force. This changes everything. If your secretary knows you're here, the robbers know too. And from the investigators looking for you, she must have hired more people. I need to confront her, William said, standing up abruptly. No! Theodore and Isabella protested in unison. That's exactly what she wants. To lure you out of safety, Isabella argued. If you show up at the office, you could walk into a trap. So what do you suggest I do? Stay hidden here forever while Claire files lawsuits and Nora sends people after me? Maya approached him with Owen in her arms. Mister, why don't you tell the police everything? Because I have no proof, honey. It's my word against hers. But what if we could get proof? Isabella suggested thoughtfully. How? Let me think. Isabella took out her phone and started typing quickly. I have an idea, but it's risky. Go on. What if we pretend you skipped town? We spread the word that you ran off scared, abandoned the baby, that kind of thing. If Nora thinks you've disappeared, she might let her guard down and expose herself. Theodore shook his head. Too dangerous. What if she decides to harm the people at the garage, thinking they're no longer useful? That's why it would only be for a few days, just long enough for her to relax and maybe make a mistake. William considered the proposal as he watched Maya hum a soft tune to Owen. The girl had become a perfect substitute mother for the baby, showing an unconditional love that contrasted painfully with the power games and financial interests of the adults around them. There's another issue, he finally said. Claire will be back with a court order. When that happens, it won't matter if we pretend I've fled. They'll search the garage until they find Owen. Unless he's really not here, Isabella said mysteriously. What do you mean? I know a safe place, a farm belonging to family friends, far from the city. We could take the kids there while you handle the situation with Nora and Claire. I'm not separating from my son right now. I didn't say separate. You would go too. All of us would. Theodore lit another cigarette. Isabella, I can't just abandon the garage. It's all I have. Just for a few days, Grandpa, until things calm down. The discussion was interrupted by the sound of cars, once again stopping in front of the garage. This time, there were 3 vehicles, and William recognized one as belonging to Bernard Fields, his business partner. Damn it, he muttered. Bernard found out where I am. They all quickly hid in the cellar, but this time they could clearly hear the voices from above. Besides Bernard, there were 2 other people, a man with a deep, authoritative voice and a woman William immediately recognized as Nora. I'm sure he's here, Nora was saying. The street girl who saw him said a well-dressed man was taking care of a baby. William was always smart, Bernard replied. If he's really here, it won't be easy to get him. It doesn't have to be difficult, the deep voice said. There are plenty of ways to convince someone to come out. In the cellar, Maya hugged Owen tighter as silent tears streamed down her face. Isabella held Theodore's hand, who seemed to have aged 10 years in a few minutes. William clenched his fists, feeling a rising rage. Nora had brought reinforcements, probably the same men who had robbed him. And now, Bernard, the man he had trusted for a decade, was in on the betrayal. What are they going to do? Isabella whispered. Before William could answer, they heard the sound of glass shattering upstairs, followed by Bernard's voice. Theodore, we know you're in there. Come on out or we'll destroy everything. Theodore stood up abruptly, but William held him by the arm. Don't go up. That's exactly what they want. But they're destroying my garage. Would you rather they destroy your life? If you go up now, they'll use you to blackmail me. The noise of destruction continued upstairs. Tools being thrown, workbenches being overturned, a lifetime's work being torn apart by people with no scruples. Maya began to cry softly, and Owen started to get restless too. Isabella took out her phone and showed William a message she was typing, calling the police. William shook his head. If the police arrived now, they would find them all hiding in the cellar like fugitives, which would only further complicate the legal situation with Claire. It was then they heard Nora scream from upstairs. William, I know you can hear me. We have your company. We're going to have your son, and if you don't come out in 5 minutes, we're going to have a lot more. The veiled threat made William's blood run cold. It was no longer just about money or revenge. It had become personal, and innocent people were being dragged into the middle of a war he never wanted to fight. The silence that followed Nora's threats was broken by an unexpected sound. Approaching sirens. Isabella had managed to discreetly call the police on her cell phone, reporting vandalism at the garage. Police! Everyone, hands up! An authoritative voice shouted from upstairs. In the cellar, they heard running footsteps, slamming doors, and the sound of cars speeding away. Nora, Bernard, and their accomplices had fled before the officers could get a clear look at them. "You can come up," Theodore said after a few minutes. "I think they're gone." When they reached the garage, they found a scene of devastation. Tools scattered across the floor, overturned workbenches, slashed tires, open paint cans, staining everything. Theodore looked around with tears in his eyes, seeing his life's work destroyed. The police sergeant, a middle-aged man with a grey mustache, took notes as he surveyed the damage. "Mr. Nash, did you see who did this?" "They took off when you arrived," the mechanic replied. "3 people, but I couldn't see their faces clearly. Do you have any idea what they wanted?" Theodore hesitated, glancing quickly at William. "I don't know. Maybe they thought I had money stashed away." The officer continued asking routine questions, while Isabella discreetly took Maya and Owen to the back of the garage. William remained in the cellar, knowing he couldn't risk being seen. After the police left, the unlikely family gathered to assess the damage. The situation had become untenable. "You can't stay here anymore," Isabella said firmly. "Next time they'll come back, better prepared. Maybe at night, when the police take longer to arrive." "Where will we go?" Maya asked, holding Owen to her chest. "What if they find us wherever we go?" William knelt beside her. "I won't let anything happen to you, honey. I promise." "How can you promise that, mister? They're stronger than us." Maya's simple question hit William like a fist. It was true. He was running, hiding, reacting to his enemies' moves instead of taking the initiative. He had become a burden to good people who didn't deserve to go through this. "Isabella," he said suddenly, "that farm you mentioned, is it really far away?" "About 2 hours from here, up in the mountains. It belongs to some family friends who raise cattle. It's an isolated, discreet place. What if you go there with the kids while I sort this out?" "No!" Maya protested immediately. "I don't want to be away from you." Theodore also shook his head. "Son, we're not abandoning you now. It's not abandonment, it's strategy. If Nora can't find you, she has no way to blackmail me, and I can confront her without fear of retaliation." "What if it's a trap?" Isabella asked. "What if that's exactly what she's waiting for?" Before William could answer, his cell phone rang. It was an unknown number, but when he answered, he recognized the voice immediately. "William, this is Josephine." "Who?" "Josephine Amorim. I'm Maya's grandmother." The silence that followed was total. Maya let out a small cry and ran toward the phone. "How did you get my number?" William asked, still processing the information. "I've been asking around town. I heard my granddaughter is with you. Please, I need to see her." Maya was trembling, tears streaming down her face. "Is it really my grandma? Is she alive?" "I am, my little one. Grandma never stopped looking for you." Emotions swept over everyone present. Theodore discreetly wiped his eyes, and even Isabella seemed touched by the scene. "Where are you?" William asked. "At the Oak Creek bus station. I arrived this morning. I heard you're going through a rough time, and I came to get my granddaughter." "Grandma," Maya said, taking the phone. "You disappeared after the mudslide. I thought you died." "No, my flower. Grandma was hurt, went to the hospital. When I got better, our house was destroyed and you were gone. I've been looking for you everywhere." William watched the conversation between grandmother and granddaughter with conflicting feelings. On one hand, he was happy to know Maya had family. On the other, the thought of being separated from her saddened him deeply. "Can you come here?" Josephine asked. "Or better yet, where can I meet you?" Theodore took the phone. "Mrs. Josephine, the situation here is complicated. There are dangerous people looking for us. It's not safe for her to come to the garage." "Then I'll come to you. Where are you?" "No, Mom. It's better if we meet in a neutral place." Isabella spoke up. I can pick you up at the bus station and take you to the farm. Everyone will be safe there." "What farm?" Josephine asked suspiciously. "Family, friends, a safe place where Maya can be protected while we solve the problems here." There was a long pause. "I don't know. I don't know you. How do I know my granddaughter is really safe?" Maya spoke again. "Grandma, they took care of me. Mr. William, Grandpa Theo, and Izzy are my family now. They protect me." "Family." Josephine's voice sounded confused. "But they're strangers, sweetie. They're not strangers anymore. They're people who love me." William's heart ached at Maya's words. In just a few days, the girl had formed such strong bonds that she considered them all her real family. "Mrs. Josephine," he said, "I understand your concern, but I can assure you Maya is being well cared for. If you like, you can come with us to the farm and see for yourself. And you, why are you involved with my granddaughter?" William briefly told the story of the robbery and how Maya had saved Owen. When he finished, there was another long silence. "That girl has always had a heart too big for her own good," Josephine said finally. "All right, I'll go with you. But I want to understand this situation properly." 2 hours later, Isabella returned with a woman of about 50, thin, with grey hair tied in a simple bun. She wore poor but clean clothes and carried a small cardboard suitcase. The reunion between Maya and Josephine was emotional. The two hugged and cried, and for a few minutes, the world seemed to stand still for this family that was finding each other again. "Let Grandma see how you've grown," Josephine said, examining Maya affectionately. "You're stronger, healthier. It's because they give me good food and let me sleep in a real bed." Josephine looked at William with gratitude. "Thank you for taking care of her. I know it wasn't your obligation. It was a pleasure. Maya is a special girl. But now that I've found her, we're leaving. I got a job as a housekeeper in a neighboring town. We have a place to live." The ensuing silence was awkward. Maya looked from Josephine to William, clearly torn between her love for her grandmother and the bond she had formed with her new family. "Grandma," she said shyly, "can I take Owen with us?" "He needs me. Sweetie, the baby has a father and a mother. He's not ours. But they fight a lot, and his mom doesn't like me." William knelt in front of them. "Maya, I know this is hard, but your grandmother is right. Owen can't go with you." "Then I'm staying," Maya said with surprising determination. "Owen needs me more than I need a house." Josephine looked shocked. "Maya, I'm your blood family, and they're my family of the heart. My mom always said family of the heart is sometimes stronger." Theodore gently intervened. "Mrs. Josephine, how about you get to know our situation better before making any decisions? Maya can spend a few days with you, you can talk, get to know each other again. And what if she decides to stay with you?" Then we'll respect her decision," William said. "But you will always be welcome to visit and be a part of your granddaughter's life." Josephine looked at Maya, then at Owen in Isabella's arms, and finally at the group of people who had taken in her granddaughter. "All right, we'll go to this farm, but I want to understand everything before any decisions are made." That night, as they prepared to leave the next morning, William received a call that would once again change the course of events. It was Claire, and her voice was colder than ever. "William, I heard your garage was vandalized today. It seems you really can't maintain a safe environment for children. How did you know about that?" "I have my sources, and I've heard other interesting things too. For example, that you're hiding out with a street girl and a suspicious mechanic. Theodore is not suspicious of anything." "We'll see. I've already filed for a search and seizure warrant. Tomorrow morning officers will be there to get my son, and this time they'll be taking you in for some questions too." The call ended, leaving William with the certainty that his time had run out. By morning, all his problems would converge on that little garage, and he would have to choose between turning himself in or dragging more innocent people down with him. The escape to the farm happened before dawn. Theodore had called a truck driver friend who would take them on back roads to the mountain refuge. The entire group squeezed into the cab of the semi, William with Owen on his lap, Maya between him and Josephine, Theodore in the front seat next to Isabella and the driver. "How long until we get there?" Josephine asked nervously, looking out the window at the darkness surrounding them. 2 hours, if we don't have any trouble," replied the trucker, a bearded man named Sebastian. "But the mountain road is treacherous in the dark." Maya dozed against William, who watched her peaceful breathing and questioned whether he was doing the right thing. Fleeing seemed cowardly, but staying meant exposing everyone to danger. "Mister," Maya murmured sleepily, "when we get to the farm, will Owen be able to play in the grass?" "Yes, honey, there will be plenty of space for you to play. And will Grandma Josephine like it there?" Josephine heard the question and stroked her granddaughter's hair. "Grandma will like any place where you are safe, sweetie." The farm appeared at dawn like a green oasis surrounded by mountains. The main house was simple but welcoming, with a wide porch and flower gardens. Mrs. Connie, the owner, greeted them with hot coffee and homemade bread. "Make yourselves at home," she said, a robust woman in her 60s with a warm smile. "The house is big. There are rooms for everyone, and no one will bother you here." For the first few days, the routine on the farm brought a peace none of them had experienced in weeks. Maya ran through the fields with Owen crawling behind her, while Josephine watched her granddaughter with a mixture of pride and concern. "She's changed a lot," Josephine commented to William one afternoon as they watched the children play. "She's more mature, more responsible. Maya has always had a special heart. She just needed people to recognize it." "Do you plan to adopt her officially?" William hesitated. "Honestly, I don't even know if I'll be able to keep custody of my own son. How can I think about adopting another child? But she's grown attached to you and to the baby too. I've grown attached to her as well, but I understand that you are her real family." Josephine sighed. "Mr. William, can I tell you something? I love my granddaughter more than anything, but I know I can't give her what she deserves. I work as a housekeeper, I earn little, I don't have my own home. Love is worth more than money, Mrs. Josephine." "It is, but it doesn't fill bellies or pay for school. Maya is smart. She deserves an education, to have opportunities." That night at dinner, Maya made a statement that surprised everyone. "I want you all to stop deciding my life without asking me," she said, with a seriousness that was stunning for a 4-year-old. "What do you mean, sweetie?" Josephine asked. "Everyone keeps talking about where I'm going to live, who I'm going to stay with, but nobody asks what I want." William leaned forward. "So tell me, Maya, what do you want?" "I want to stay with my whole family. Grandma Josephine, you, Grandpa Theo, Izzy, and Owen. Why can't we all live together?" The simple question left the adults speechless. Isabella was the first to speak up. "You know, that's not a bad idea. Grandpa, you live alone in that garage. Mrs. Josephine needs a job. William needs trustworthy people to help with the kids." "Isabella, it's not that simple," Theodore protested. "Why not? William's house is big, isn't it? There's room for everyone." William thought of the empty mansion where he lived before the robbery. There really was room for a large family. But how could he explain that he might not have a house at all soon? "There are some complications," he said carefully. "My financial situation is difficult." It was then that they received news that changed everything. Sebastian, the trucker, had returned to town and brought disturbing information. "Theodore's garage has been sealed off by the police," he said, "and there are posters all over town with William's photo, offering a reward for information." "A reward?" William asked, alarmed. $5,000 for anyone who knows where you are. They're saying you fled with investors' money. Theodore slammed his fist on the table. What a damn lie! There's more. Your ex-wife is giving interviews to the local TV station, saying you kidnapped your son. William's blood ran cold. Kidnapped? What do you mean? She says you took the boy without permission and disappeared, that you're using the child as a bargaining chip to avoid being arrested. Maya began to cry. Mister, are you going to be arrested? No, honey, I haven't done anything wrong. But what if the police don't believe you? Maya's question echoed in everyone's mind. William was being painted as a criminal by his own ex-wife, who was using the media to force his surrender. I have to go back, he said suddenly. I can't let Claire control the narrative like this. That's crazy, Isabella protested. If you go back now, they'll arrest you before you can explain yourself. So, what do you suggest? That I stay hidden forever while she destroys my reputation? Josephine spoke up timidly. What if we could prove that your secretary lied? How? Sebastian said she's giving interviews too. Maybe she'll say something that contradicts her previous versions. Isabella picked up her phone. I can try to find these interviews online. If she's lying, she might slip up on a detail. While Isabella searched for the interviews online, William paced restlessly on the porch. The situation had snowballed, threatening to destroy not only his life, but also the lives of the people he had come to love. Found it! Isabella shouted suddenly. There's an interview with Nora here that doesn't match what she said before. They all gathered around the phone to watch. On the screen, Nora appeared composed and convincing, but there was something in her eyes that suggested nervousness. In the interview, she says you withdrew the money without telling anyone, Isabella explained. But I remember you mentioned that she had prepared all the paperwork for the withdrawal. Exactly. She herself suggested I go get the money that day. There's more. She says she didn't know which route you would take back to the office, but yesterday you confirmed that she came to the garage looking for you. Theodore lit a cigarette. You mean she's lying publicly? Not just lying. She's contradicting herself. If we can put all these inconsistencies together, hope began to resurface in the group, but it was quickly shattered by new information from Sebastian. There's something I forgot to mention, he said reluctantly. John Baker, one of the robbers, was arrested yesterday. That's great, William exclaimed. No, it's not. He's saying you staged your own robbery to fake a theft and embezzle money from the company. The silence that followed was devastating. William felt his legs give out and sat down heavily in a chair. How can they believe that? He has details about your movements that only someone close to you would know, Sebastian continued. Schedules, routes, even the exact amount you were carrying, because Nora gave him all that information. But she denies any involvement, and now she's being seen as a victim too, saying you deceived her just like you deceived everyone else. Maya approached William and held his hand. Mister, I believe you. Me too, said Josephine. We all believe you, Theodore confirmed, but that won't matter if we can't get concrete proof. That night, William couldn't sleep. He walked around the farm under the full moon, thinking about how his life had turned into a web of lies and manipulation. When he returned to the house, he found Maya sitting on the porch, rocking Owen. Why aren't you sleeping, honey? I was waiting for you to come back. I don't want to sleep while you're sad. William sat beside her, touched by the girl's devotion. Maya, I need to tell you something. I might have to leave alone. Ooh, where to? To turn myself in to the police, to explain my side of the story. What if they don't believe you? Then I might be in jail for a while. Maya began to cry silently. I don't want you to go. I don't want to go. But I can't keep running forever, and I can't let you all suffer because of me. Mister, she said in a choked voice. "Promise me something." "What?" "Promise that if you can prove you're innocent, you'll come back to us." William hugged the girl and the baby, feeling his heart break. "I promise I'll fight to come back to you. And promise you won't forget that we're your family." "I'll never forget. You've changed my life." The next morning, William would make the hardest decision of his life: to leave his makeshift family to face alone the accusations that threatened to destroy everything he had built. But before that, he needed to find a way to protect the people he loved from the consequences of his battle. William's decision was postponed by an unexpected discovery. The next morning, while they were having coffee on the farmhouse porch, Isabella received a call that changed everything. "It was a friend from college," she said, hanging up the phone with an excited expression. "He works at the bank where you withdrew the money. He has important information." "What kind of information?" William asked, trying not to get his hopes up. "The security cameras recorded everything, including the phone conversation you had with Nora while you were at the bank." Theodore nearly dropped his coffee cup. "You mean there's a recording of Nora instructing you on the withdrawal?" "More than that. It has her telling you to take that specific road because it would be safer and more discreet." William felt a burst of hope in his chest. That proves she planned everything. "Hold on," Isabella said. "My friend can't release those recordings officially. He'd be fired. But he said if someone files a formal complaint, the court can request the footage." "How do we do that?" "You need a lawyer, someone to file an official petition." Josephine spoke up hesitantly. "I know a lawyer in the town where I work, Mr. Marcus. He's honest and doesn't charge much." "Mrs. Josephine, this could be dangerous for you," William warned. "If Nora finds out you're helping us." "Son, my granddaughter has suffered enough. If you're innocent, I'll do what I can to help." That afternoon, as Josephine left with Sebastian to find the lawyer, William received a call that sent him into a total panic. "Daddy?" The voice was a child's, but he didn't recognize it immediately. "Who is this?" "It's Mia, Claire's daughter. She told me to call." William froze. Mia was the daughter from Claire's first marriage, a 7-year-old girl he had helped raise during the years they were married. "Mia, honey, how are you?" "Sad, Daddy Will. Mommy said you became a bad man and I can't talk to you anymore." William's heart broke. Mia had always called him Daddy, even though he wasn't her biological father. It was one of the most painful losses of the divorce. "Mia, listen carefully. Daddy isn't a bad man. I'm going through some problems, but I'm not bad." "I know, Daddy. That's why I called in secret. I want to tell you something important." "What is it, honey?" "I heard Mommy talking on the phone with a woman. They were making up a story. The woman said that if Mommy went on TV and said you kidnapped Owen, she would get a lot of money." William almost dropped the phone. "Are you sure you heard that?" "I'm sure. The woman said she had a plan for you to go to jail and for Mommy to get everything. Then Mommy said she would pretend to be very scared of you." "Mia, do you know this woman?" I didn't see her, but I heard her name. Mommy called her Nora." The confirmation that Claire was conspiring with Nora was like a punch to William's stomach. His ex-wife wasn't just fighting for custody of Owen, she was actively working to destroy him. "Daddy, there's one more thing. The woman said she was going to take some men to the mechanic's house tonight to settle the situation for good." William's blood ran cold. "What men, Mia?" "I don't know, but I heard her talk about burning something." The call cut off abruptly, probably because Claire had discovered her daughter on the phone. William stood still for a few seconds, processing the terrifying information. "What happened?" Maya asked, noticing his expression. "We need to warn Josephine and the lawyer not to go back to the garage. Nora has planned something for tonight." Theodore turned pale. "My garage?" "It seems so. And it could be serious." Isabella was already dialing numbers on her phone. I'll try to reach my aunt. She can warn Grandma Josephine." But it was too late. By the time they made contact, Josephine and the lawyer were already on their way to Oak Creek, unaware of the danger that awaited them. "I have to go back," William said, standing up abruptly. "No," Maya protested, grabbing his hand. "They'll hurt you. I can't let Mrs. Josephine and the lawyer walk into a trap because of me." "And what about us?" Theodore asked. "Are you going to leave us here without knowing what happened?" William looked at the group, Maya with tears in her eyes, Owen sleeping peacefully in Isabella's arms, Theodore with a worried expression. This was his family, the only one that truly mattered. "We'll all go," he finally said, "but carefully. We get to town, warn Mrs. Josephine about the danger, and then decide what to do." The journey back was tense. Sebastian drove on back roads, avoiding the main highways. By the time they reached the outskirts of Oak Creek, it was already night, and the streets were empty. "There's smoke up ahead," Sebastian said, pointing toward the town center. William's stomach churned. The smoke was coming from the direction of Theodore's garage. As they got closer, they found a devastating scene. The garage was in flames, and firefighters were struggling to control the fire. A crowd had gathered on the street, watching the blaze. "My garage," Theodore murmured, his eyes filled with tears. In the middle of the crowd, William spotted Josephine and a man in a suit who must have been the lawyer. They were talking to police officers, gesturing toward the burning building. "They're okay," Isabella said, relieved. But as they got closer to hear the conversation, they discovered something terrible. "Yes, Sergeant," Josephine was saying. "We got here and found the building already on fire, but there were people running from inside." "How many people?" the officer asked. "3. 2 women and a man. One of the women was screaming that they had to get out before the explosion." "Explosion?" The lawyer spoke up. "Sergeant, I need to inform you that we came here to investigate irregularities related to the William Carter case. I suspect this fire was not accidental." "Mr. Marcus is right," Josephine agreed. "One of the women who came out of the building was well dressed. She seemed to know the place." William understood immediately. Nora had set fire to the garage, probably to destroy evidence or simply to eliminate the place where they had been hiding. "I need to talk to the sergeant," he said, stepping out of the shadows. "William!" Josephine cried out. "Thank God you're okay." The sergeant turned, recognizing him immediately. "Mr. William Carter, you're under arrest." "Sergeant, before you arrest me, you need to hear what I have to say. This fire was not an accident. First, you're going to clarify the accusations of kidnapping and fraud." Mr. Marcus stepped forward. "Sergeant, I'm Mr. Carter's attorney. He has come forward voluntarily because we have important evidence about the real crime here." "What evidence?" "And bank recordings that prove his secretary orchestrated the robbery, and now this arson to destroy evidence." The sergeant hesitated. "Even so, I have to execute the arrest warrant." It was then that Maya broke free from Isabella's hand and ran toward the group. "Please, Mr. Policeman," she said in her childish voice, "Mr. William is not a bad guy. He saved the baby and took care of me when no one else would." The sergeant looked at the soot-stained girl, then at Owen in Isabella's arms, and finally at William. "Is this the child who was supposedly kidnapped?" "Kidnapped?" Maya laughed. "I'm the one who brought the baby to him when the bad men tied him to the tree." The girl's innocent account began to plant doubts in the sergeant's mind. Mr. Marcus seized the opportunity. "Sergeant, this child is an eyewitness to the actual robbery. And if you review the bank recordings I mentioned, you'll see that my client is a victim, not a criminal." "All right," the sergeant finally said. "I'll hear what you have to say, but you'll be in police custody until we clear this up." As they walked toward the station, Theodore looked one last time at his burning garage. 40 years of work," he murmured. "We'll rebuild," William promised. "When this is all over, We'll rebuild everything." "How? I have nothing left." "You have a family," Maya said, taking the mechanic's hand. "And families help each other." At that moment, watching the fire that had destroyed their last refuge, William understood that the battle had only just begun. But for the first time in weeks, he didn't feel alone in facing it. The Oak Creek police station had never seen such a complex situation. In the interrogation room, William sat beside Mr. Marcus, while across the table, Sergeant Antonio Freitas tried to make sense of the tangled web of facts he had received from different sources. "Mr. Carter, I'll be direct," the sergeant said. "I have a warrant for your arrest for kidnapping and fraud, issued at the request of your ex-wife, but I also have this child," he pointed to Maya, who was sitting in a chair beside them with Owen on her lap, "telling me you're a hero." "Sergeant, I can explain everything," William began. "Even better, I can prove everything," Mr. Marcus interrupted, opening a folder. "My colleague at the bank emailed me copies of the recordings I mentioned, with a court order, of course." The sergeant put on headphones and listened intently to the recordings. His expression gradually shifted from suspicion to surprise, and finally to outrage. "This woman actually told you which route to take?" "Yes, Sergeant. Nora knew my routine. She knew when I would be withdrawing the money, and she suggested the road where the robbery happened." "And what about the kidnapping?" Maya spoke up before William could answer. "Mr. Policeman, there was no kidnapping. I'm the one who asked him to let me take care of the baby, because they're my family now." The sergeant looked at the girl with a fatherly expression. "And where is your real family, honey?" "Grandma Josephine is outside, but Mr. William is family too, and Grandpa Theo and Izzy. Family isn't just who you're born with, it's who takes care of you." Maya's simple wisdom touched everyone in the room. Even the clerk typing the deposition paused to look at her with admiration. "Sergeant," Mr. Marcus said, "I also need to inform you about the fire. We have reason to suspect it was arson, with the intent to destroy evidence." "What evidence?" "Mr. Nash's garage was where my client was hiding. If someone wanted to silence him or destroy something that could compromise them." At that moment, the door to the room opened, and an elegant woman William recognized immediately walked in. It was Claire, accompanied by two men in suits. "Sergeant Freitas," she said in an authoritarian voice, "I've come to pick up my son who was kidnapped by this man." "Mommy," a child's voice cried from the hallway. It was Mia, who had managed to escape whoever was watching her and ran into the room. The girl looked around, saw William, and ran to hug him. "Daddy Will, did you get away from the bad men?" Claire was visibly embarrassed. "Mia, go back to the car, now." "I don't want to. I want to stay with Daddy Will and meet my little brother." The girl looked at Owen in Maya's arms and smiled. "He's beautiful. And who are you?" "I'm Maya. I take care of Owen." "That's so cool. Can I play with you?" Claire intervened sharply. "Mia, that girl is from the streets. You can't play with her." The silence that followed was heavy. Maya looked down, clearly hurt by the comment. William felt anger boil inside him. "Claire, how dare you speak like that in front of a child? I'm protecting my daughter from bad influences. The only bad influence here is your prejudice." The sergeant slammed his hand on the table. "Enough! Mrs. Montgomery, can you explain why your older daughter is calling the accused Daddy?" Claire hesitated. It's a child's thing. She gets confused." "I'm not confused," Mia protested. "Daddy Will has taken care of me since I was little. He's the one who took me to school, helped me with my homework, and told me stories before bed." Mr. Marcus stepped forward. "Sergeant, this is important. It demonstrates that my client has a history of caring for children with love and responsibility." "And there's more," Mia said, looking directly at her mother. "Mommy, tell him about the conversation with Aunt Nora." Claire turned pale. "Mia, you didn't understand correctly." "Yes, I did. You two planned to lie about Daddy Will so he would go to jail." The sergeant sat up straight in his chair. What conversation was this? Mia, with the brutal honesty of a child, told them everything she had heard. How Nora had called Claire, how they had agreed to use the kidnapping accusation, how they planned to split the money they would get from William's ruin. "That's not true," Claire protested. "It's a child's fantasy." "Mommy, why are you lying? I heard everything." At that moment, the sergeant's phone rang. It was the fire captain reporting on the arson investigation. "We found traces of an accelerant," the sergeant said after hanging up. "It was definitely arson. And there's more. They found some half-burned documents in the attached office, contracts, receipts, things that survived the fire." Mr. Marcus's eyes lit up. "What kind of documents?" "They seem to be from Mr. Carter's company. I'll need him to identify them." When they brought in the charred papers, William could hardly believe what he was seeing. They were original documents for the land he had invested in, but with alterations he had never seen before. "These signatures aren't mine," he said, examining them carefully. "And these dates have been tampered with." "What do you mean?" "These papers prove that someone forged documents to sabotage my real estate project. Look here." He pointed to a signature. "This is clearly an imitation of my handwriting." Mr. Marcus examined the documents. "Sergeant, this changes the entire situation. My client was not only the victim of a robbery, but also of corporate sabotage." "And who would have had access to these original documents?" the sergeant asked. William thought for a moment. "Nora. She was responsible for all the company's paperwork." Claire was visibly nervous, constantly glancing at the door as if she wanted to escape, but it was Mia who delivered the final blow. "Mommy, don't those papers look like the ones Aunt Nora brought to our house last week?" "What papers, honey?" the sergeant asked gently. "A folder full of papers that Aunt Nora said would make Mommy rich. She left them at our house for Mommy to keep." Claire stood up abruptly. "I need to leave. I have an appointment." "Sit down," the sergeant ordered firmly. "Mrs. Montgomery, you are being accused of complicity in document fraud." "This is ridiculous. I don't know what you're talking about." "Mommy," Mia said sadly, "why won't you tell the truth? Daddy Will always taught me that lying is wrong." Just then, the door opened again, and two officers entered, bringing a handcuffed woman with them. It was Nora Quinn, who had been arrested trying to flee town. When she saw William, all her composure vanished. "You bastard! Why couldn't you just stay quiet? Now you've ruined everything." "Nora, why?" William asked, genuinely hurt. "I worked with you for 3 years. I trusted you because you never saw me as a woman, only as an employee, and when you rejected my advances, I decided that if I couldn't have you, I would at least have your company." The spontaneous confession left everyone in shock. Nora had gone beyond simple betrayal. She had orchestrated a complex plan to destroy William out of romantic rejection. "And was Mrs. Montgomery involved?" the sergeant asked. "Claire was just a tool. An ambitious woman who needed money. It was easy to convince her to play against her ex-husband." The sergeant looked at Claire with a stern expression. "Mrs. Montgomery, do you have anything to say?" Claire looked at Mia, who was watching her with sad, disappointed eyes. Then she looked at Owen, sleeping peacefully in Maya's arms, and finally at William. I need a lawyer," she murmured. "You can call whoever you want," the sergeant said, "but you'll be detained until we clarify your role in this fraud." As they led Nora and Claire to the cells, Mia approached William with tears in her eyes. "Daddy Will, is Mommy going to jail?" "I don't know, honey. It depends on what she did. And me? Where will I live if she goes to jail?" William looked at Maya, who was watching the scene with compassion, then at Owen, and finally at Theodore and Josephine, who had entered the room. "Mia," he said softly, "how about you meet your new family?" The girl looked around, at Maya, who smiled shyly at her, at Theodore, who gave a warm nod, at Josephine, who was already opening her arms to welcome her. Will they like me, even though I'm the daughter of the mommy who lied? They'll love you because you're a special girl who had the courage to tell the truth, William answered. And so, in that police station, a family that had begun with a robbery and a brave child gained another member as the truth finally came to light. 3 weeks after the events at the police station, William's life had changed in ways he could never have imagined. The charges against him were formally dropped, and both Nora and Claire were awaiting trial for fraud and document forgery. But the legal victories seemed small compared to the practical challenges he now faced. The company was bankrupt. The real estate project had been definitively cancelled by the investors, and creditors had seized all of the construction firm's assets. William found himself without a job, without money, and responsible for a family that had grown unexpectedly. "Daddy Will," Mia said one morning, as she played with Maya and Owen in the backyard of the small house they had rented on the outskirts of town. "Why do you get sad when you think about work?" "Because I don't know how I'm going to support you all, honey," he answered honestly. "I've lost everything I had." "But you have us," said Maya, looking up from the drawing she was making. "Doesn't that count for anything?" The girl's simple question hit William hard. It was true. He had lost money, a company, social status. But he had gained something far more valuable, a family that loved him unconditionally. "It counts for everything," he said, hugging the two girls. "You're worth more than all the money in the world." Theodore appeared at the kitchen door, holding a cup of coffee. The mechanic had aged visibly since the fire at the garage, but he maintained the optimism that had always characterized him. "William, you need to see this," he said, holding out a local newspaper. The main headline was about the discovery of massive fraud in the City Hall's records, involving several real estate projects besides William's. The investigation had uncovered a complex forgery scheme that had harmed dozens of business owners in the region. "Look down here," Theodore said, pointing to a small article. "They're looking for honest people to rebuild the construction sector in the city. Business owners with a clean reputation to lead new projects." William read the article with growing attention. A group of investors from the city was offering partnerships to local entrepreneurs who could prove their integrity and technical competence. "Theodore, I have nothing left to offer. No office, no equipment, no capital. But you have knowledge, and after all this, you have the cleanest reputation in town." Josephine joined the conversation, wiping her hands on her apron. "Son, sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what you're really capable of." That afternoon, William made a bold decision. He put on his best suit, one of the few he had left after selling his assets, and went to the investors' meeting, which was being held at the most expensive hotel in Oak Creek. The room was filled with well-dressed businessmen, all presenting elaborate proposals and promising quick profits. William felt out of place, acutely aware of his precarious financial situation. "Mr. William Carter," a voice called from behind him. It was a man of about 50, with grey hair and the look of someone who had prospered in life through honest work. "I'm Robert Silver, one of the investors. I read about your case in the papers. I'd like to have a word with you." William followed Robert to a reserved table in the corner of the room. "Mr. Carter, I'll be direct. We're looking for someone to lead a low-income housing project here in the region. Something big that will create jobs and solve social problems. Mr. Silver, I have to be honest with you. I don't have a company. I don't have capital. I have nothing but experience. And integrity. After all the mess with fraud and corruption, that's worth more than money." Robert explained the project. It was an enterprise to build affordable homes for low-income families, financed by a partnership between the federal government and private entrepreneurs. The problem is, we need someone who knows the reality of these families, who understands their real needs, not just the technical specifications. William thought of Maya, sleeping in vacant lots before she found them, of Josephine, working as a housekeeper with nowhere to live, of Theodore, who lost everything and still continued to help others. "I know that reality," he said. "I live with it every day now." "So you'll accept to lead the project?" "I accept. But I have one condition." Robert raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "I want to hire a specific team, people who have gone through hardship and know the value of honest work." When William returned home that night, he found the whole family gathered in the small living room, anxiously awaiting news. "So?" asked Isabella, who had come down from the city to visit. "I got it," he said simply. The children's cheer echoed through the house. Maya and Mia ran to hug him, while Owen clapped his hands without understanding exactly why. "What kind of job?" Theodore asked. "Building affordable housing, 100 homes for families in need." "And you're going to manage a project that big?" "We are," William corrected. "You're going to be my site manager." Theodore almost dropped his coffee cup. "Me? But I'm just a mechanic. You're the most honest and hard-working man I know, and you understand construction better than many engineers." In the following days, William carefully assembled his team. He hired John Baker, the same man who had participated in the robbery, after he was released from prison, showing genuine remorse and a desire to start over. "Why are you giving me this chance?" John asked, incredulous. "Because everyone deserves a second chance, and because I know you can be a good employee when you're sober." He also hired other former employees who had been hurt by the original company's bankruptcy, small business owners who had lost customers, and honest workers who were unemployed. Josephine took over the administration of the makeshift office they set up in a rented house. Isabella became responsible for the tech side, digital contracts, communication with suppliers, financial reporting. "It's like a cooperative," William explained to the children one night at dinner. "Everyone works together and shares the results." "And the families who will live in the houses?" Maya asked. "Will they be happy?" "I hope so. We're going to build real homes, not just walls." "What do you mean?" William showed them the project blueprints. Each house would have a yard, a proper utility area, decent-sized rooms, and most importantly would be built with quality materials. "You know what will be the unique feature of our project?" he said, pointing to a specific drawing. "We're going to involve the families in the construction. They're going to help build their own homes." "Why?" Mia asked. "Because then they'll value it more, and because they'll learn skills they can use to earn money later." Theodore smiled. "Just like you did with us. You gave us work and dignity at the same time. I learned from you all that a family is built together. A house is the same thing. But it wasn't all smooth sailing for the new project. 2 weeks after construction began, William received an unexpected visit at the office. It was a well-dressed man in dark glasses who identified himself only as a representative of business interests. "Mr. Carter, I've come to make you a proposal." "What kind of proposal?" "Your competitors are concerned about this project of yours. Houses that are too cheap could affect the local real estate market." William immediately understood where the conversation was headed. "And what do they suggest?" "That you raise the price of the houses or change the project to something less popular." "In exchange for what?" "For not having problems. Accidents can happen on large construction sites like this." The veiled threat made William's blood boil, but he remained calm. "You can tell your bosses that I'm not changing a thing about this project." "Mr. Carter, you're making a mistake." "No, the mistake would be abandoning the families who trust me." When the man left, William stared out the window at the construction site, where John Baker was coordinating a group of workers laying bricks with care. He knew new troubles were coming. But this time he wasn't alone to face them. He had a family that had chosen to stand by him, employees who believed in the project, and most importantly, a purpose that went far beyond personal profit. "Mr. William," said Maya, appearing at the office door, "there are a bunch of people outside who want to talk to you." "What kind of people?" "Families with little kids. They say they want to meet the man who's going to give them a home." William smiled. These were the people he was working for. And no threat in the world would make him give up on giving them what he himself had learned to value: a real home. The mysterious man's threats materialized 2 weeks later in a cruel and unexpected way. William arrived at the construction site on a Monday morning to find a scene of devastation. All the equipment had been sabotaged over the weekend. They cut the hoses on the cement mixers, slashed the truck tires, smashed the power tools. John Baker reported with anger and frustration. This was planned. "Boss, they knew exactly what to do to stop everything without making a sound." Theodore walked among the destroyed equipment, shaking his head. "It's going to cost a fortune to fix all this. And the deadline for the first houses." "We're not going to make it," William finished, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The families are counting on the delivery at the end of the month. It was more than a delay in the schedule. Robert Silver had been clear. The affordable housing project was experimental, and any failure would be used by critics to cancel future investments in similar projects. "Boss," John Baker said hesitantly, "can I suggest something?" "Go on." "What if we ask the families themselves to help? Not with the technical stuff, but with cleaning, organizing, and small equipment repairs." William considered the idea. "John, they don't have technical knowledge, but they have willpower and time. Most of them are unemployed anyway." Theodore perked up at the suggestion. "It could work. I can teach the basics of mechanics to anyone who wants to learn. I always needed helpers at the garage." That afternoon, William called a meeting with all the families who were to receive houses. The meeting took place in the makeshift shed that served as an office, with people sitting on borrowed chairs, crates, and even on the floor. "Folks," William began, "I need to be honest with you. We've had a serious problem that could delay the delivery of the houses." A worried murmur spread through the crowd. William saw the faces of unemployed workers, single mothers, elderly people living with relatives, children playing among the chairs without understanding the gravity of the situation. "But," he continued, "I have a proposal. Instead of waiting passively, how about we build these houses together?" "What do you mean?" a woman in the front row asked. "You help us with what you can, cleaning, organizing, small repairs, preparing materials. In return, you learn skills you can use to earn money after the houses are finished." A middle-aged man raised his hand. "Mister, we don't know anything about construction." "I didn't know anything about being a father when Owen was born either," William replied, pointing to the baby Maya was holding, "but I learned because it was important." The comparison resonated with many people. Fathers and mothers in the audience nodded, recognizing the truth in his words. "What if we mess something up?" a young woman asked timidly. Theodore stood up. "Kid, making mistakes is part of learning. I'll be here to teach and guide you. Nobody will be doing anything alone at the start." "Mr. William," said an elderly man from the back, "what do you get out of this? Why not just hire professional builders?" The question caught William off guard. He looked around, seeing the hopeful but cautious faces of the people who trusted him. "Because you're not just clients to me," he finally said. "You're family, and family helps each other to prosper together." The silence that followed was broken by a child of about 6 who ran to the front. "Mister, can I help too? I know how to carry bricks." The boy's spontaneity drew laughter from the crowd and broke the tension. One by one, people began to volunteer. "I know how to cook for everyone," said a woman. "I can make lunch for the workers." "I know how to sew." "I can mend protective gear," offered another. I have an old pickup. I can help transport materials. In a few hours, the project had transformed into something much larger than just building houses. It had become a community movement where each person contributed what they could offer. Maya, watching everything from Josephine's lap, asked a question that surprised all the adults. "Mr. William, are these people going to become our family too?" "What do you mean, honey?" "Family is who helps each other, right? If everyone is going to help each other here, they'll become a big family." The 4-year-old's observation made William realize he had created something beyond a housing project. He was building a community based on cooperation and mutual care. The next day, the construction site turned into a human anthill. Entire families arrived early. Children played in safe, supervised areas. Men learned basic construction techniques from Theodore and John Baker. And women organized materials and prepared communal meals. "I've never seen anything like it," commented Robert Silver, who had come to check on the project's progress. "This doesn't look like a construction site. It looks like a party." "It is a party," William confirmed, watching a group of children help paint fences while their mothers learned to mix mortar. The party of people building their dreams with their own hands. But the joy was cut short at the end of the week by an unexpected visit. A team from City Hall arrived at the site with official documents. "Mr. William Carter," the team leader said, "we have an order to halt construction." "Halt construction? We have all the necessary permits. We received a complaint that you are using unregistered labor, unregistered workers, minors on the site, and disregard for safety regulations." William looked around. It was true that the site was full of families, including children, but they were all in safe areas, doing age-appropriate activities. "The children aren't working. They're playing in a supervised area while their parents learn trades. It doesn't matter. The complaint has been filed, and we need to investigate. The work is halted until further notice." John Baker approached with a worried expression. "Boss, if we can't work, we'll definitely miss the deadline." This was exactly what the competitors wanted. To use bureaucracy to make the project unfeasible and prove that serious, affordable housing was impossible. "Mr. William," said one of the future residents, a woman named Connie, who had become an informal leader of the volunteer group, "what if we keep working without you?" "What do you mean?" "The stop work order is for your company, not us. We can continue working on what is rightfully ours." Theodore understood immediately. "She's right. If the families continue preparing the land, organizing materials, doing the parts they can do on their own, when the order is lifted, we'll have everything ready to speed up construction," Connie finished. It was risky, but it was the only chance to save the project. William gathered the entire team to explain the situation. "Folks, I'll be clear. This is political and economic persecution. They want to tear down our project because we're proving it's possible to build good, affordable houses." "So what do we do?" asked one of the future residents. "You decide. You can give up and wait for another project to come along, or you can fight for your dreams." The answer came in a chorus: "We'll fight." That night, as the family gathered for dinner in the small house they shared, Mia asked a question that echoed everyone's concerns. "Daddy Will, why are there people who don't want other people to be happy?" "Because some people think that if others prosper, they will lose something," he explained. "But happiness doesn't run out, right? If I'm happy, it doesn't mean you can't be happy too." The 7-year-old's simple wisdom perfectly summed up the conflict they were facing. It was a war between two worldviews, one based on scarcity and competition, the other on abundance and cooperation. "You're right, Mia, and that's why we're going to keep fighting, to prove that everyone can be happy at the same time." The work stoppage lasted 3 weeks, but what happened during that period surprised even William. The families not only continued working on the land, but also turned the construction site into a veritable trade school. Theodore taught basic mechanics to 15 men. Josephine created a home economics course for the women, and even Maya contributed by teaching the younger children to read and write. "I never thought I'd see something like this," Robert Silver said one afternoon, observing the organized activity on the halted site. "It's as if you've created a community college." "We didn't create anything," William replied. "We just gave people the opportunity to show what they're capable of." The end of the work stoppage came unexpectedly. Mr. Marcus managed to prove in court that the complaint had been filed by a competitor using false documents. Not only was the work cleared to resume, but those responsible for the sabotage were identified and prosecuted. "We found out who's behind it all," the lawyer said in a meeting with William. "A group of traditional construction companies that are afraid of losing market share to projects like yours. And now they know you have legal protection and community support. They're unlikely to try anything again." When work officially resumed, the progress was spectacular. The families who had learned trades during the stoppage worked with an efficiency that impressed even the experienced professionals. "Look at this," John Baker said to William, pointing to a group of men laying bricks with perfection. 3 weeks ago, they were unemployed. Today, they work better than many professional masons I've seen. It's the difference between working out of necessity and working for a dream," Theodore observed. The first 5 houses were completed ahead of schedule. The handover was turned into a city-wide celebration, with families receiving not only the keys but also certificates for the courses they had taken during construction. "Mr. William," said Mrs. Mary, a 60-year-old woman who had lost her home in a flood, "I don't know how to thank you. It's not just the house, it's having my dignity back. Mrs. Mary, I'm the one who should be thanking you. You all taught me that construction isn't about bricks and mortar, it's about people and community." Maya, now 5 and more talkative than ever, approached, pulling Owen by the hand. The baby had turned 1 and was already walking, always following the girl as if she were his older sister. "Mr. William, when is our house going to be ready?" The question caught everyone off guard. With all the focus on the housing project, William had forgotten that his own family was still living in a small, inadequate rented house. "Our house?" he asked. "Yes, the big house where we'll all live together. Grandma Josephine, Grandpa Theo, Izzy, me, Owen, Mia, and you." William looked around. Mia was playing with other children, Josephine was organizing documents, Theodore was supervising the placement of roof tiles, and Isabella was photographing everything for the investors' report. They really were a big, happy family. "You know what, Maya? I think it's time we built our own house. A real house, with a yard for Owen to play in and a room for everyone. A real house, built by us, just the way we dreamed." Robert Silver, who was listening to the conversation, approached with a smile. "Mr. Carter, I have a proposal for you." "What proposal?" "The project here was so successful that we want to expand. Build another 200 houses in a second phase, and then replicate the model in other cities." William fell silent, processing the offer. It was the chance to grow professionally, make money, and rebuild the social status he had lost. What would my role be? General coordinator of the program. You'd travel the state implementing similar projects. Excellent salary, company car, all the perks. And my family? Robert hesitated. "Well, it would be a lot of work, a lot of travel. Maybe it would be better to leave the children in a good boarding school, your wife with a nanny." "Stop," William interrupted firmly. "Thank you for the offer, but I'm not interested. Mr. Carter, you're turning down a golden opportunity. I'm choosing something more valuable than gold." Robert left, visibly displeased, but William didn't regret his decision for a second. He had learned that real success wasn't measured in money or prestige, but in the happiness of the people he loved. 2 months later, on a Saturday morning, the whole family was gathered on the lot William had bought with his savings from the first phase of the project. It was a large plot on the outskirts of town with leafy trees and a view of the mountains. "So, architects," he said to the children, "what's our house going to look like?" Maya already had it all planned. "A big room for me and Mia, Owen's room next to yours, Grandma Josephine's room with its own bathroom because she's older, Grandpa Theo's room with a little workshop for him to tinker with broken things. And Isabella? Her room too, but only for when she visits. And it has to have a big living room for everyone to watch TV together," Mia added her suggestions, "and a big kitchen for Grandma Josephine to make that cornbread, and a porch with a hammock for Grandpa Theo to rest after work. And a yard," William asked. "A huge yard," the two girls shouted together, "with a swing set, a slide, and a garden to plant vegetables." Owen, who couldn't speak much yet, just clapped his hands and shouted, "House, house!" Theodore looked at the drawings the children had made and smiled. "You know, William, they have a better sense of architecture than many professionals I've seen, because they know what really matters in a house," Josephine replied. "Love, comfort, and space for a family to grow." The construction of the family's house took 8 months, with everyone actively participating. The children carried small bricks, Josephine managed the materials budget, Theodore installed all the electrical wiring, and Isabella documented every stage. When they finally moved in on a sunny Sunday afternoon, William stood on the porch watching his family. Maya was teaching Owen to ride a tricycle in the yard. Mia was helping Josephine plant flowers in the garden, and Theodore was organizing his tools in the small workshop they had built out back. "Satisfied with your choice?" Isabella asked, sitting beside him on the hammock. "Completely. I went from being a millionaire businessman to a happy family man. Best deal of my life." "And you don't miss the old life? The money, the prestige?" William thought of the empty mansion where he used to live, the lonely nights, the failed marriage with Claire, the constant pursuit of more profit and status. "Izzy, 2 years ago I had $5 million in cash and thought I was poor. Today I have 5 children and I feel like the richest man in the world." 5 children. Maya, Owen, Mia, you, and John Baker. Isabella laughed. "John Baker is your son now? That 40-year-old kid needs some urgent fatherly guidance. And he's doing great as the project foreman." That night, after the children were asleep, William walked through the house they had built together. Every room told a story of love. Every detail had been designed for the family's well-being. In the girls' room, he found Maya still awake, looking out the window. "Why aren't you asleep, honey?" "I was thinking about something, Mr. William." "What? Remember when we first met? You were tied to that tree, desperate, thinking you had lost everything." "I remember. But you hadn't really lost anything. You had gained a new family." "What do you mean?" "If the bad men hadn't taken your money, you never would have met us, and we never would have met you." The girl's observation made him reflect on the mysterious ways of life. The robbery that had seemed like the worst possible tragedy had turned out to be the best gift he had ever received. "You're right, Maya. Sometimes we lose things we think are important to find things that really matter." "So the bad men did something good without meaning to?" "They did. They brought me to you." Maya smiled and finally closed her eyes. "Good night, Daddy Will." It was the first time she had called him Daddy. William felt his eyes fill with tears of happiness as he left the room and went to the porch, where he could see all the lights of the small village they had built. Nearly 100 families living with dignity, in their own homes, with steady work and the prospect of a better future. And at the center of it all, his own strange and wonderful family, united not by blood, but by choice and love. The man who had lost $5 million had discovered that his true fortune wasn't in a bank, but on his front porch, watching the stars and planning the next day's breakfast with the people he loved most in the world. 5 years later, on a sunny December morning, William woke to the familiar sound of children running through the house. At 47, he had learned to cherish these sounds he once found disruptive. He got out of bed and walked to the bedroom window, observing the yard where his family was preparing for another day. Maya, now 9, was helping 6-year-old Owen tie his shoes for school. The girl had grown into a confident, studious child, always top of her class and a natural leader among her peers. She retained the kindness that had characterized her since she was little, now combined with a determination that impressed her teachers. "Maya, don't forget you have a school meeting today," Josephine called from the kitchen. "I know, Grandma. I'm going to tell the principal about the community garden project." William smiled. Maya had convinced the school to create a garden where children could learn about sustainable agriculture. And now, other schools in the region wanted to replicate the idea. Mia, at 12, was at the kitchen table finishing an essay on modern family for her English class. The girl had become a reflective and intelligent teenager who kept in regular contact with Claire, who had been released from prison after serving 2 years for fraud, but never again tried to interfere with the children's custody. "Daddy Will," she called when she saw him coming down the stairs, "can I read you my essay?" "Of course, honey. Family is not defined solely by blood ties, but by bonds of love and mutual choice," she began. "In my house, we have people who came from different places with different stories, but who chose to stay together because they love each other. My adoptive father lost everything he thought was important and found everything that truly matters, people who make every day worthwhile." William felt his eyes well up with tears. "It's perfect, Mia. Are you sure? Isn't it too sentimental? The best things in life are sentimental." In the kitchen, Josephine was preparing breakfast with the efficiency of someone who had found her purpose. At 55, she had become not only the administrator of the house, but also the coordinator of a professional training program for low-income women in the community. "William," she said, pouring coffee, "a letter from the federal government came yesterday. They want to visit our project." "For what?" "To make it a national model. It seems other states want to implement the same community housing system." Theodore came in through the back door, his hands greasy as always. At 65, the mechanic had become the maintenance coordinator for the entire village of affordable homes, as well as training young people in auto mechanics. "John Baker is already at the site," he reported. "He said the residents of Phase 3 want a meeting this afternoon." "About what?" "They want to propose a consumer cooperative system, buying food directly from producers to lower food costs for everyone." William shook his head in admiration. The community they had created continued to evolve and find creative solutions to its own problems. "And how's John?" "He's completed 2 years sober, and he's dating Connie, the one who organized the women at the beginning of the project." "That's great. He deserves to be happy." Isabella appeared at the door, carrying a folder full of papers. At 27, she had become the technical coordinator for all the housing projects in the region, constantly traveling between cities to implement the model they had developed. "Good morning, family," she said, kissing the top of each child's head. "Grandpa, I need you to go with me to Pine Ridge on Friday. They're starting a project there, and they want you to train the maintenance team." "Of course, kid. Always good to spread knowledge." During breakfast, as had become tradition, each family member shared their plans for the day. It was a simple ritual that kept everyone connected, even with their increasingly busy lives. "Today, I'm visiting 3 new families who have arrived in the community," William said. "They need guidance on the vocational courses." "I'm going to coach the kids' soccer team," said Owen, who had developed a passion for the sport and a natural talent for leading the younger kids. "I'm going to plant lettuce in the school garden," said Maya. "I'm going to finish my science project on solar energy," said Mia. "I'm going to teach an administration class to 12 women," said Josephine. "I'm going to fix the generator at the community school," said Theodore. "I'm going to present our project to investors from the city," said Isabella. After the children left for school and Isabella departed for her appointments, William walked to the office they had set up in one of the community houses. The walls were covered with photos showing the project's evolution. Families receiving keys, children playing in the safe streets, adults graduating from vocational courses. The community now had 250 houses, a school, a health clinic, a cooperative, 3 vocational training workshops, and most importantly, a sense of belonging that had transformed lives. "Mr. William," a voice said at the door. It was Carlos, one of the first residents, who had arrived unemployed and now ran a small carpentry business with 5 employees. "Hi, Carlos. How are you?" "Good, thank God. I came to thank you again." "Carlos, you've thanked me 1,000 times. It's just that sometimes I still can't believe it. My kids are in a good school. My wife is a trained seamstress. I have my own business. It feels like a dream. It's the reality you all built with your hard work. We built it together. You could have gotten rich again, left here, gone to the city, but you stayed." William thought of Robert Silver's proposal, which had been repeated several times over the years. Tempting offers to expand nationally, make a lot of money, become a reference in affordable housing. "Carlos, do you know the difference between being rich and being prosperous?" "I don't. Being rich is having a lot of money. Being prosperous is having a life that makes sense. And my life makes a lot of sense here." That afternoon, during the meeting with the residents of Phase 3, William watched the lively debate about the consumer cooperative. These were people who had arrived with no prospects and were now discussing complex business strategies, financial planning, and partnerships with rural producers. "Mr. William," said Mrs. Connie, who had become one of the community leaders, "we want to propose something to you." "What is it?" "We want you to be the first mayor of our city." "What do you mean, city?" "We're starting a movement to incorporate our community, to become an independent municipality, and we want you to be the first mayor." The proposal caught William off guard. The community had grown so much that it truly had the size and organization to become a municipality. "Folks, politics is complicated. There are a lot of interests." "That's exactly why we want someone we trust," said Carlos. "Someone who has proven they think about the common good." "Let me talk to my family first." That night at dinner, William told them about the proposal. The reaction was immediate and unanimous. "Say yes, Daddy," Mia said. "You'd be the best mayor in the world." "You can do for others what you did for us," Maya agreed. "It would be a way to help even more people," Josephine said. "And I can be the public works secretary," Theodore joked. Only Isabella seemed concerned. "Grandpa, politics can be dangerous, and it could affect our projects in other cities." "Why, Izzy?" "Because politicians have enemies, and enemies might try to attack our family." Her concern was valid, but William looked around the table, seeing the faces of the people he loved most in the world, and realized they had faced worse things together. "You know what? I think it's time to think bigger." A month later, in a simple ceremony in the central square of the new town of New Hope, a name chosen by the residents themselves, William Carter was sworn in as the mayor of the community he had helped create. Maya and Owen were in the front row, wearing party clothes and smiling proudly. Mia held a banner that read, "Our Daddy the Mayor." Josephine was crying with emotion, and Theodore waved to the photographers documenting the historic ceremony. "When I came here 5 years ago," William said in his inauguration speech, "I was tied to a tree, desperate because I had lost $5 million. Today, I am the mayor of a town of 15,000 happy residents, and I know that was the best investment of my life." The audience laughed and applauded, but William continued seriously. "Because I learned that true wealth is not in what we accumulate, but in what we share. It is not in what we achieve alone, but in what we build together." He looked at Maya in the front row, the brave girl who had saved Owen and changed his life forever. "A 4-year-old child taught me that family is not about blood, but about choice. That love is not about convenience, but about commitment, and that sometimes we need to lose everything to find what really matters." The applause was long and emotional. When it ended, Maya ran onto the stage and hugged William tightly. "I'm proud of you, Daddy," she said in his ear. "I'm proud of us," he replied, looking at the applauding crowd and his family on the stage. That night, on the porch of the house they had built together, William watched the lights of the city spread to the horizon. 15,000 people lived there with dignity, work, and hope. Children who would grow up with opportunities, families who would prosper together, a community that had proven another world was possible. "Satisfied with your life, Mayor?" Theodore asked, sitting beside him. "More than satisfied. Fulfilled." "And do you regret anything?" William thought for a moment. "Only one thing, not meeting you all sooner." "Everything has its time, son. If you had met us sooner, maybe we wouldn't have valued each other as much." "You're right. And now, what are the plans for the next few years?" William looked inside the house, where Maya was helping Mia with her math homework, where Owen was building a puzzle with Josephine, where Isabella was working on her laptop planning new projects. The same as always: take care of the family, help the community, and prove every day that love is stronger than fear. And what if new problems arise? We'll face them together, like we always have. At that moment, Maya appeared at the porch door. "Daddy, come see something." William followed her to her room, where a new drawing was on the wall. But it was no longer one of her colorful childhood birds. It was a detailed map of the town of New Hope, with all the houses, streets, squares, and in the center, a large tree with a plaque. "Here our family began." "It's the tree where you were tied up," she explained. "I had a tree planted in the exact spot with a little plaque, so we never forget where we came from." William hugged his daughter, thinking how she had grown, but kept the wisdom that had always characterized her. "You're still the most special person I know. I learned from you that bad things can turn into good things if we don't give up. And you taught me that family is about choosing to stay together even when it's hard." "So we're even," she said, smiling. That night, before sleeping, William took stock of his life. He had lost 5 million, but gained a family. He had lost a company, but gained a community. He had lost social status, but gained a life's purpose. And as he listened to the familiar sounds of his home, Theodore snoring in the next room, Josephine still washing dishes in the kitchen, the children whispering secrets before sleep, William smiled, knowing he was the richest man in the world, not in money, but in everything that truly mattered.